What do you think a school bag should carry? Books, homework, maybe a lunchbox, and dreams for the future. But sometimes, a school bag carries something we cannot see. Fear, silence, and a story that a child is too afraid to tell. And sometimes, all it takes to uncover that story is one person who decides to look closer. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Cessa from Indonesia Academy. My student ID number is 3255313, and my safety commitment is I don't put my hands in the pocket while walking. A few years ago, one of my junior high school friends, who I will call Alia, told me something that completely changed the way I look at violence. She was being sexually harassed by someone who was supposed to teach, guide, and protect her. Yes, it's her own teacher. At first, Alia didn't tell me everything, and she only said that she felt uncomfortable around him. I remember wondering whether I was overthinking the situation, because sometimes when we hear something difficult, our first instinct is to find an explanation that makes it seem less serious. Maybe she misunderstood him, or maybe it was a joke, or it wasn't as bad as it sounded. But when she finally told me what had happened, I realized that this was not something that could simply be ignored. She was scared, confused, and didn't know who would believe her. She even questioned herself and wondered whether she had done something wrong or whether she should have handled this situation differently. What hurt me the most was realizing that the person she trusted to help her develop her abilities had become the person she was afraid of. At that moment, I realized that violence does not only hurt someone through the action itself, but can also continue through fear, silence, and the feeling that nobody will believe you. I didn't know exactly what to do because I wasn't a counselor, lawyer, or someone who had experience dealing with cases like this. I just couldn't erase what had happened, and I couldn't promise her that everything would immediately become okay. But there was one thing I knew I could do. I could stay beside her, so I listened to her, accompanied her whenever she needed support, she needed me, and reminded her that what happened was not her fault. So when she decided that she wanted to report what happened, I supported her decision and stayed with her through the process. It wasn't easy because there were questions, fears, uncertainty, and moments when she felt like giving up. Sometimes I didn't even know what to say, so instead of trying to give her perfect advice, I simply listened and reminded her that she didn't have to face everything alone. I learned that sometimes supporting someone doesn't mean having all the answers. Sometimes it simply means being there when they needed someone to stay. Well, eventually, the case moved forward. The teacher was investigated, and he was eventually arrested. That moment did not magically erase everything Alia had experienced, because an arrest cannot take away the fear, memories, or emotional pain caused by what happened. But it gave her something important. The feeling that she had finally been heard and that someone had taken her experience seriously. So for me, it was also a reminder that speaking up and supporting someone can make a real difference. This experience absolutely changed the way I understand what it means to combat violence. Before this happened, I thought fighting violence was mainly about stopping the person who caused the violence itself or making sure that they were punished. Now I understand that it also starts with noticing when something is wrong, listening without blaming, and creating an environment environment where people feel safe enough to speak. Sometimes, the first step toward combating violence is simply refusing to let someone experience it alone. That is why I believe storytelling can be powerful in combating violence. So, we don't always have to share someone's private stories or experiences or expose their identity, but we can share stories that remind people that violence can happen at anywhere and everywhere, even in places where we are supposed to feel safe. So the stories can teach us to recognize warning signs, encourage victims to seek help, and remind others that their responsibility is not to judge, but to support. So when we talk about these experiences responsibly, we help break the silence that always allows violence to remain hidden. So if one day you notice that someone around you is struggling or fighting about something, don't immediately ask why they didn't fight back or why they didn't speak sooner. Instead, please ask them how you can help, listen when they are ready to talk, and remind them that what happened to them is not their fault. Well, we may not always be able to stop violence by ourselves, but we can make sure that the people experiencing it don't have to face it alone. Because combating violence does not only begin with punishment, it begins with empathy, courage, and looking out for one another. That's all from me. Thank you for your attention. Have a wonderful day.